Chapter 34. After a week of running around, we were ready. Mum and Dad paid for the use of the village hall. Graham and I had driven around the farms and villages with the trailer and collected stuff people didn't want anymore. We had several old TVs, a set of dinner plates, clothes, toys, and a big chicken run with 2 chickens to sell. Most people were glad to get rid of some things before Christmas. Rob had printed out posters and leaflets advertising the fair, and he had cycled round all the houses posting them through the letterboxes. On the leaflets, he'd put a picture of Geneva in her plaster casts, and in typical Rob style, he'd written, "Help us save Geneva's legs before it gets the chop." Ewan had gone out really early and managed to catch 2 fat trout from the river. Mum had baked enough cakes and biscuits to feed a whole army, and Dad put his favourite whiskey in the raffle. Hamish added to the raffle prizes with a year's free entry to the nature reserve he worked at. It seemed right that on the front cover of the nature reserve leaflet there was a photo of one of the ospreys that nested there. It was nearly 2 o'clock, and already I could see a queue of people outside the village hall waiting to come in. Mum fussed about with the tea urn, and Ewan's mum and Rob's mum set out some tables and chairs. We were just about to open when Rob pushed his way through the back door. He was wheeling his bike with him. "Take that out," snapped his mum. "We don't want mud in here." I looked across at Rob. His bike wasn't muddy. It wasn't muddy at all. It was sparkling clean, like new. "Put it in the sale," said Rob quietly. "You're kidding," I said. He shook his head. "It's got to sell for 400. OK, no less," he said. "You sure?" I couldn't believe it. "Just do it," he said. He ran his hand along the handlebars, then turned and fled out of the hall, just as the first customers came into the fair. It was hectic at first. People rummaged through the piles of clothes and books and DVDs. The teas and coffees did a good trade, and Mum's cakes went down well. I ran a stall of second-hand CDs and electronic stuff. I even had Rob's bike next to the stall. There was lots of interest in it, but no one offered to buy it. Mum came over to bring me a drink and a slice of chocolate cake. "It's going well," smiled Mum. "How much do you think we've raised?" I asked. Mum shrugged her shoulders. "I don't know, but I reckon the teas and coffees alone have taken over £100. She served the customers while I munched my cake. I wasn't really taking much notice of the stall until I heard Mum's voice. "Hello, Mr. McNair. How are you?" I looked up. Iona's grandfather stood at the stall. He seemed smaller than I remembered, more stooped. He fumbled in his coat pocket for his wallet and held it out in his brown, leathery hands. They were shaking badly. "I'll take the bike," he said. Mum smiled. "It's a wee bit expensive, I'm afraid," she said. Mr. McNair opened his wallet and pulled out some notes. He laid them on the table, counting up in 20s. "Mr. McNair," protested Mum. "It's all there," he said. £400. "It's a lot of money. You can't afford it," said Mum. Mr. McNair pulled out another £10 note and slapped it on the table. "And I'll take the 2 trout on the next stall too." He put the fish in a plastic bag, took Rob's bike by the handlebars, walked out of the hall, and was gone. Mum picked up the money and stared after him. I didn't know how I was going to tell Rob.